Hey everybody. So in the last class we talked about um, the Articles of Confederation, the strengths, the weaknesses, basically how it was a first shot at central government, but there's a lot of areas that needed for improvement. So what you should have read about in your homework was about Shays' Rebellion. So just to recap what Shays' Rebellion was, it was a revolt led by Daniel Shay in Massachusetts. The local government tried to collect taxes, and Daniel Shay just wasn't having it. He led a large group of farmers, and they rebelled against the local government in Massachusetts. But the problem was that it showed the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. So, as you remember, the Articles couldn't recruit people from the states into the military, so there was no unified American military to go put down this rebellion. Instead, it was basically the Massachusetts militia, and when they needed help, they called upon other states, but other states really weren't willing to help. The states weren't one cohesive unit. Um, and the nearby states like Rhode Island, they um, they are like the Rhode Island area and the states surrounding Massachusetts. They were worried about their own border. They were like, well, what if Daniel Shay comes into Rhode Island? What if we send all our troops to Massachusetts to help and they get passed? What are we going to do? Rhode Island's going to be taken over by these people rebelling. So that showed the weakness of Articles of Confederation and that there had to be a change. So today we're going to take a look at the Constitutional Convention and see what that entailed. And just a reminder, if you're listening to this in real time when I post it during the week, there's an extra credit current event that is due Friday. So the Constitutional Convention, it met in Philadelphia, and the purpose was just to revise the Articles of Confederation, um, because a lot of people wanted to revise it because they still wanted the states to have control. They just knew that they had given more powers to the central government. But the reason they wanted states' rights was because they just got out of a tyrannical government with Britain, so they were afraid to give a central government strong power. However, some people wanted a completely new system, so this led to the issue of federal power versus states' rights. All right, so there are a couple different plans that were mentioned at the Constitutional Convention. One was the Virginia Plan, which was presented by Edmund Randolph. So it supported federalism, so the division of powers between a strong central government and state government. So they wanted the central and state governments to work together um, in ruling the country. And they wanted Congress to overturn state laws and tax states. They realized that it was not a good idea to have the articles not being able to collect taxes from the states. That was pretty much just asking for trouble. And you might know this from our own government, but it called that the federal government should be divided into three branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. So continued with the Virginia plan, the legislative branch would be bicameral, so it would be made up of two houses. Probably heard that before because that's what we have today. However, state populations would decide number of representatives in each house. So they wanted the states with more people to have more power. They saw that made sense because, like, hey, we have more people to govern, so we should be able to have more influence. But it angered the smaller states because they know that they would have no say in the central government because they don't have as big as a population. So to counter the Virginia plan, out came the New Jersey plan, and that was brought up by William Patterson. Um, so what happened with William Patterson? He wanted one house in the legislative branch. He wanted to make it very equal in this unicameral house. He said each state gets one vote. So he wanted it to be very equal among the states. And another thing continued was the federal government also would have the power to tax the states and regulate commerce. So with these two plans, what came was the Great Compromise. It was produced by Roger Sherman, and it pretty much set up the government that we have today. So there were two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Representatives were based on state population. So the bigger states with the higher population had more say in the House of Representatives. But in the Senate, it is more equal. So the Senate has two senators from each state, no matter on the population. So the House of Representatives kind of was influenced by the Virginia plan, and the Senate was influenced by the New Jersey plan. So, as I mentioned, there were two different groups: those that supported states' rights and those that supported the central government. So that created two groups called the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. So the Federalists, they supported the Constitution. They wanted a strong federal government. They were mainly wealthy merchants, planters, lawyers. They're pretty much the higher ups in society. They knew that they wouldn't really be messed with by the central government, so they thought that that would be okay. So they wanted a strong central government to provide stability, ensure a strong currency, and protect property rights. And then on the other hand, we have the Anti-Federalists. So they are pro states' rights. They did not want too strong of a central government because they were afraid that that central government would resemble a monarchy. And as I mentioned earlier, they just got out of monarchy situation, so they did not want to go back. This was more of the common man, usually less educated farmers. You could see why they would be worried about being ruled by a monarchy because they might not, have a say in the government. And they said that central government would violate the states and individual rights, and they were upset with the Constitution because at that time there were no Bill of Rights. So see what happens next.